How's it going, everybody? Luker back again. I know it's been a while, but today I want to take a look at the best 5 decks for ladder in April. Usually I do one of these videos every month, and I kind of missed it this month because of the balance changes and also just some personal stuff going on. So I want to take a second and take a look at the best 5 decks for ladder. As usual, we're going to start with the 5th best deck and then move up, so the last deck we'll talk about will be the best one. I recommend watching through all of them, though, because they're all just good decks for ladder. I know a lot of people have different opinions on what they think the best decks are. For example, I watched Superior David's video, and I think that my opinion on it was a little bit different than him. But this is my experience playing within top 100 and top 200 ladder for the past month. Like a week. Meta hasn't been around that long. And I think these decks are all pretty good. Some of them are harder than others, but they're all worth a shot. You can find the deck codes in the description below. And if you like this content, be sure to subscribe for more. I upload videos hopefully about once or twice a week, and I stream daily on twitch.tv, which you can also find in the description below. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's jump right into it. It wouldn't be a top 5 video if we didn't start off with a bit of a hotter take, I want to say. First deck we're taking a look at is Weapon Rogue. Weapon Rogue is an archetype that I think is actually a bit weaker in terms of power level than Miracle Rogue, but its matchup spread is a bit better for ladder right now. Every time I stream, people come in my chat and they're like, oh my god, there's so much Priest on ladder, there's so much Warlock, I hate Ticketus Warlock, I hate Mage, and Weapon Rogue does very well against these decks. Weapon Rogue is very similar to the old Aggro Rogues. Essentially, you run 2 different weapons. You have 2 copies of Self-Sharpening Sword, 2 copies of Swine Tusk Shank, and your goal is to play a bunch of poisons on them and hit your opponent in the head. In the mulligan, you're going to keep Swine Tusk Shank or Self-Sharpening Sword. If you buff both of them, you only need the Shank, and then after that, you're free to keep whatever. I pretty much full mull for these cards every game. Sometimes I'll keep Wand Maker, but that's really about it. You can prep and Swindle is fine, but whatever. The point is, you make a weapon, you hit him in the head. Priest and Warlock struggle to deal with these decks. Neither of them are really running weapon removal right now. So when you make a big weapon, you can usually just kill them over a couple turns. It's a very, I guess, uninteractive deck in a lot of ways. Your opponent won't really feel like they're playing the game, but you will, and that's what matters. If you like aggro decks, this is the deck for you. I think it's pretty well situated in the meta. I will say though, if your meta share is mostly Paladin, if you're only running into Paladin, this probably isn't the best deck for you. I'd recommend trying something else. If you're playing against slower decks, such as Priest and Warlock, as I mentioned, this deck will be fine. But if all you're seeing is Paladin, then you're not going to have a great time, and try something else, I'd say. The next deck is kind of a controversial one in some ways, not because of the power level. I think it's pretty undisputedly strong, but I know a lot of people don't like this deck, and it is no Minion Mage or Spell Mage. What's interesting is this deck actually doesn't have Deck of Lunacy, which is a card that was in every list before. This is LukerHS's deck. He is a high-level Hearthstone player. Pro player, I guess is a good way to say it. He's been around forever, and he's always been good at Hearthstone. He's just good at deck building. If you played, like a couple weeks ago before the balance change, you played against Deck of Lunacy Mage. It's not a fun deck to play against. Fun to play, though. You kind of just have a bunch of random shit happen. And this is pretty much the exact same thing, except you take out the Deck of Lunacy, because you want a consistent game plan. The cards in the deck are just good. You spend early game removing stuff or drawing cards with Arcane Intellect. You can use Combustion to remove the board. You have secrets from Ring Toss or even just Ice Barrier to stall out the game. You have Refreshing Spring Water, which is literally Pot of Greed. In case you don't know, Pot of Greed lets you draw 2 cards. Pretty good card. And then you have Burn with Fireball, Apex's Blast, and Mask of Cthulhu. This deck can just deal 30 over the top. You also have Runed Orb, but this deck just deals damage over the top and kills your opponent. Your opponent's just sitting there chilling, like, I'm gonna corrupt my Ticketus, and you're like, Fireball, Fireball, you're dead, get out of my game. And it's pretty relieving in a lot of ways. I will say, if you play this deck, people might add you and tell you to jump off of the highest building near you, but just ignore the friend request and you're fine. Who gives a shit? The deck's fun. I think it'll do really well for you if you're looking to climb on ladder. Alright, the 3rd best deck is some form of Paladin. It's kind of hard to pinpoint which one is best. You could play Secret Paladin or just the pure aggressive Paladin. I think Secret Paladin is respected as a bit more consistent of an archetype, but for the sake of this video, I'll be featuring Aggro Paladin. If you're looking for a Secret Paladin build, you can find them on HS Replay or pretty much anywhere. They don't change too much from this. In fact, the list looks pretty similar to this, but just includes I'm Having a Stroke, the Secret Package, which is the Commander, the 3/4, the Sword of the Fallen, and, well, some secrets. I hit my mic, I'm so sorry. This Paladin deck is pretty much the same thing, except it's just more aggressive. Instead of playing secrets, you're developing minions with your turns, such as Righteous Protector, Argent Braggart, Cult Neophyte, etc., and then you're buffing them with cards such as Hand of Vidal. It's a good deck. This list comes from Jackie Chen, who piloted it to top 25 legend, I want to say. Might have been like 26 or something. Doesn't really matter. The game plan is simple. You play minions early, you buff the minions, and then you kill your opponent. You have cards to lock your opponent out of the game, such as Ogremancer or Cult Neophyte, really good against spell-heavy decks, and then cards like Blessing of Authority and Hammer of the Nard to just develop big threats and push damage. This deck felt really good. I was playing it. It was one of the decks that I piloted to high legend, and again, it's matchup dependent. I think it might be a bit worse than Secret Paladin, but you guys know what Secret Paladin is. It's everywhere. So for the sake of this video, Aggro Paladin's not included, yada yada, but you can figure it out. I might put the code in the description below. Anyways, this deck is very good if you like aggressive decks, or I guess it's kind of like an aggressive mid-range deck, and this is probably the one for you. I'd recommend picking it up, jamming some games. It might feel a bit different at first, a bit weird, but typically look for first day of school in the mulligan, and then after that you can keep other cards. One drops are good too, like Righteous Protector. If you like aggro decks, this is the deck for you. If not, well, play Priest, I guess. The second best deck in the game is one that people have been really excited to play recently. If you've been on ladder and you've queued into Warrior, then you've probably seen Rush Warrior. Rush Warrior is an archetype that makes use of, well, you guessed it, the charge mechanic. Now I'm fucking with you. The rush mechanic. Essentially, all your minions have rush and they do a bunch of dumb shit. You play cards such as Crab Rider, Parade Leader, Playmaker, just general minions that let you get value out of your rush. If Crab Rider goes unchecked, you can very often buff it with Rikara. Crab Rider into an unchecked Rikara is bullshit. If you play Crab Rider into and your opponent doesn't kill it, and you play Rikara the next turn, you very often will just win the game. Then your mid game tends to be more medium-sized minions such as Sword Eater or Overload Runthack. Yeah, Runthack, the 5-drop that buffs your hand. The point is, you make a bunch of annoying minions. You can value trade with your opponent's minions because yours all have rush and they don't, and then you can close out the game with either Troublemaker or Alexstrasza. The new Alexstrasza does 8 damage to an enemy or heals an ally for 8, and Troublemaker summons 3/3s that hit your opponent. It always hits face and never trades, so this deck's pretty good. It just lets you close out games. It lets you do a lot of damage. I think it's a very snowbally deck, and it takes a few games to get used to. But when you start buffing your minions with cards like Rokara, Runthack, or Conditioning, you just get these such annoying boards and difficult threats to deal with, and it can be so annoying. A lot of classes just aren't simply tooled, or don't have the tools to deal with it. Paladin's a good example. When you're trying to play the game and have fun, the warrior just kind of jerks off over you, and they're like, and, you know, I'm playing Hearthstone, I'm not on Pornhub, it's not really what I'm looking for. But if you're the warrior, you're having a good time because you're beating your meat, and, you know, that's kind of what we're looking for. So if you like board-centric decks and you're upset that Warrior wasn't good in the previous meta, I think Rush Warrior would be good for you, and it is coming in at number 2 on our list. The last deck on this list is Priest. Priest is interesting because a lot of the stat sites have it a bit lower than I think any of the pro players would have it, and a lot of the casual players have played it and are like, oh, the deck's not great. But I think most of the top legend players, such as Monsanto, Gabby, Deaddraw, all agree that Priest is absurdly strong. In fact, we're featuring Gabby's list right now because of just how good it is. I will say, Rally Priest is also a deck that could probably come in within the top 1 or 2 decks in the meta, but it's kind of unrefined and it's very difficult to play. Even people like Gabby are struggling with it. I can't figure that shit out. But I think Rally Priest might have a spot in here. But anyways, Control Priest is one of the best decks in the game, and I have it at the top of my list. I think this deck is so phenomenal. The issue is that it's hard to play. It doesn't play out like other decks on the list, and it's kind of hard to get the hang of. But once you do, this deck can terrorize ladder. One thing that I saw was interesting is people were debating whether you should run Cthulhu or not. I think you kind of have to. In my experience, if you don't have Cthulhu, you kind of just have to concede every Priest Mirror to people that do have Cthulhu. It's kind of like an inevitability in a sense. The Priest Mirror comes down to it, and it's kind of the only way you win against Warlock, aside from like insane high rolling. So I think Cthulhu is core, and you have to run it. It doesn't really hurt your other matchups that badly anyways. The Body of Cthulhu can be a pretty good card. Priest is just powerful though. You have so many tools to remove the board. We got Condemn in this set, we got Hysteria last set, and Samuro is just so strong. These cards let you stall board out, and Samuro Apotheosis is some of the most bullshit I've ever seen. Zyrella is a powerful legendary that lets you wipe the board, and then late game you have Cthulhu to close it out, or Ysera as a threat. It's just, this deck just has so many good cards. When I look at the list, every card in this deck is just good, and that's a sign of a good Hearthstone deck. It does take a lot of games to play, and Mind Render Lucia, despite being one of my least favorite cards in the game, is very difficult to use optimally, and it takes time, so make sure to get some reps on the deck, play a lot before you judge it. I think if you master this deck, you could probably hit very high legend, but it will take some time. If you enjoy Priest, this is the deck for you, and if you enjoy Priest, never DM me on Twitter because I will be very sad and very, very, very hurt. So don't hurt me. And that wraps up my top 5 decks for April. If you enjoyed this video, then I hope you get to try some of these decks out, and I hope that they do well for you. I've played all of them before, and they've all done fairly well. I think the meta is kind of in this like pretty well balanced state where there are some decks such as Priest that are stronger than others, and some like Warrior or Paladin that are kind of upsetting to play against. But the meta's in a good spot, and despite being a little bit rock, paper, scissorsy, every class, except for Shaman, has a place to shine. I recommend trying some stuff out and let me know how it goes for you. You can just go in the comments below and tell me which one of your favorite decks, or which one of your decks was your favorite from this list. For real though, if you take the time to learn these decks, I think any of you could get legend, and you could just fucking soar as high as the eye can see. You'll be like the Gabriella in High School Musical, you're soaring, you're flying. So take them the ladder and let me know how it goes for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Every time you guys upvote the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a ton. I'm jobless Andy right now and just stream full time, and YouTube's a big part of it. So if you guys could help me out, I'll make some banger content for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be sure to see you next time. Peace out, Cub Scouts. Wonderful night. Take it easy, guys.